A cold millionaire CEO went on one last blind date. The girl who arrived changed everything. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story, where a cold, distant millionaire CEO decides to go on one last blind date. Little did he know, the woman who would show up would change everything in his life forever. As Emma rushed out of the restaurant, her heart pounded in her chest, her face burning with embarrassment. She had never been this mortified in her life. How could she have made such a silly mistake? She kept telling herself she had to leave. She had to just get away before anyone noticed. As she pushed through the restaurant's heavy glass doors, the cool night air hit her face, offering a brief respite from the overwhelming heat of her humiliation. She could hear the muffled sounds of the busy restaurant behind her as she quickly walked down the street, her steps quick and urgent. Her phone buzzed again. It was a message from Kevin, the real date. "I'm here at table 7, looking forward to meeting you. Hope you're doing well." She couldn't believe it. She had spent all that time with a complete stranger, and now here she was, running away from him, ashamed. Her mind raced, replaying the entire interaction. She could still hear his voice, calm and pleasant, even though he must have known she was embarrassed. She didn't even wait for him to explain himself. She just ran. "You idiot," she muttered to herself under her breath. What was I thinking? But as she walked, something tugged at her. There had been something about him, something that made her feel at ease despite the awkwardness. His smile, his soft chuckle, the way he didn't seem annoyed by her rambling. It was different. It was genuine. And now she was regretting leaving. She couldn't explain it, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter wasn't just some random mix-up. It felt like fate, like something more was meant to come out of it. "I can't believe I'm thinking about this," she sighed, wiping a tear away. It was just a mistake. That's all it was. Still, as she stepped into the subway station, the thought lingered in the back of her mind. I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't run off. Meanwhile, Liam sat back in his seat, staring at the now empty table. The sounds of the restaurant still echoed around him, but his mind was far away. He couldn't stop thinking about Emma. She had looked so nervous, yet so real, so different from the polished, well-manicured women he was used to. And when she had rushed out, he felt something stir in him. He should have stopped her, should have said something, anything to make her stay, but he hadn't. Instead, he had watched her go, feeling an unfamiliar ache in his chest. It was ridiculous. He didn't even know her. But somehow, he wanted to. "What is wrong with me?" Liam muttered to himself, leaning back in his chair. He had no interest in dating, let alone getting involved with someone so far removed from his world. He had too many things to worry about, too many deals, too many responsibilities. Yet, her face kept popping into his head, her laugh echoing in his ears. What if she didn't think he was the right person for her? What if he'd blown it? He felt unsettled, and that was not a feeling he was accustomed to. Liam grabbed his coat and stood up, throwing some money on the table before walking out of the restaurant into the cool night air. His thoughts were a mess. He needed to clear his head. His phone buzzed again, and he checked the screen. Another message from Kevin's contact. "Hey, where are you? I'm at the table, just waiting for you." Liam sighed deeply. He had to let this go. It was just a blind date. He could move on like he always did. But for some reason, he didn't want to. He made his way down the street, lost in thought, but as he passed the alley near the restaurant, he spotted her again. Emma was standing on the corner, staring down at her phone with an expression of frustration. She hadn't noticed him yet, and he hesitated for a moment. Should he approach her? Should he say something? But what would he say? "Hi, I'm the guy you just ran away from." Yeah, that would go over well. But then something else happened. She looked up, her eyes meeting his. For a brief second they locked eyes. And then, without warning, she smiled. It was a small, hesitant smile, but it was real. And for some reason, that smile made Liam's heart skip a beat. He took a step toward her, slowly, unsure of what to do next. Emma looked at him, and for a moment, there was nothing but silence between them. "You," she said, her voice a little quieter than before. "You were the guy I thought was Kevin." He chuckled softly. "I guess I'm not, but maybe we can get to know each other anyway." Emma hesitated, but then something shifted in her expression. She took a deep breath, as if making a decision in her head. I'm sorry. I should have stayed. I panicked. Liam smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. It's okay, he said, his voice calm. I understand. But, we could still talk. Maybe grab a cup of coffee? She smiled again, this time a little wider. I'd like that. And just like that, the moment shifted. It felt like the beginning of something new. Not just another blind date, but something more. Something real. As Emma and Liam sat down at the small cafe nearby, the initial awkwardness slowly began to fade. The warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and Emma found herself relaxing just a little. It had been a strange evening, to say the least, but there was something about Liam that made her feel at ease, in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. She glanced at him, noticing how his usually tense demeanor seemed to soften in the cozy setting. Liam, for his part, couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so drawn to someone so quickly. Emma wasn't like the women he usually met in his circles. She wasn't polished or primped, and that was oddly refreshing. As they sat across from each other, both of them a little more comfortable now, the conversation shifted to something more personal. So, what do you do? Emma asked, taking a sip of her coffee. She was genuinely curious, but she also didn't want to bring up the awkwardness of their first meeting too much. Liam hesitated for a moment, the question unexpectedly throwing him off balance. He wasn't used to explaining himself in casual settings, especially not to someone who wasn't interested in his wealth or his status. I work in tech, he replied, keeping it vague. Mostly business stuff, consulting, and projects. Emma nodded, not entirely understanding the specifics, but that didn't bother her. That sounds interesting, she said, offering him a small smile. I'm more of a hands-on person, I work as a waitress, but I'm trying to get my art studio off the ground. Liam raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Art studio? He asked, his voice a little softer now. Yeah, Emma replied, leaning in slightly. I've always loved painting, but things have been tough, so I haven't had the chance to really focus on it. But it's something I've always dreamed of. Liam's eyes softened as he listened. He could hear the passion in her voice, the hope, despite the circumstances she found herself in. That's really cool, he said, genuinely impressed. He could tell she wasn't just some dreamer. There was determination in her, a quiet strength he found oddly magnetic. They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, both lost in their own thoughts. For Emma, it was a brief escape from the stress of her life. And for Liam, it was a reminder of something he had long forgotten, the simple, genuine connection with another person. As they finished their drinks, Liam glanced at his watch, realizing how late it had gotten. I should probably get going, he said, standing up. Emma stood too, feeling a little disappointed that the evening was coming to an end. She had enjoyed talking to him more than she had expected. Yeah, me too, she said with a smile. But hey, thanks for the coffee. And for not judging me for running out on you. Liam chuckled. It wasn't exactly what I had planned either, but I'm glad you came back. He hesitated for a moment, then added, maybe we can do this again sometime? Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to suggest another meeting, but she found herself smiling. I'd like that, she replied softly. They walked out of the cafe together, the cool night air brushing past them. As they reached the street corner, Liam turned to face her, his expression more serious now. I know this might sound a little strange, he began, but I don't usually get involved with someone like this, But you're different, Emma, and I'd like to get to know you better. Emma felt her cheeks flush. She had never expected to hear those words from someone like him. I'm not really what you're used to, she said, almost nervously, her gaze shifting. I know, Liam said, his voice steady, and that's what makes it interesting. You don't care about the things that usually matter to people like me. Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. I guess I just care about real things, she said, her voice soft but certain. Liam chuckled, nodding. I can see that, and it's refreshing. The moment hung in the air for a brief second, and then, as if on cue, both of them smiled at each other. It was a smile full of promise, of new beginnings, of something that neither of them had expected when the night had started. As Emma turned to walk in the opposite direction, Liam felt a strange sense of peace settle over him. He had never been a man who believed in fate or coincidences, But for some reason, he couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, he had stumbled into something special tonight. And Emma? She walked away with a smile on her face, her heart feeling lighter than it had in a long time. She wasn't sure where this would go, but for the first time in ages, she was looking forward to seeing where it might lead. The following days after that chance meeting, Emma and Liam couldn't stop thinking about each other. Their first meeting, so unexpected and awkward, had somehow sparked a connection neither of them had anticipated. For Emma, it was a chance to get to know someone who didn't look at her like she was just a waitress. For Liam, it was a glimpse into a world far removed from the glossy, polished life he was used to. Their texts turned into phone calls, and those calls quickly turned into longer conversations. It felt easy, natural, and the more they spoke, the more they realized just how much they had in common. A few days later, Liam found himself standing outside a small art gallery, an unusual place for someone like him. He had told Emma he would meet her after work, but even he hadn't realized how much he was looking forward to seeing her again. As he stepped into the gallery, he couldn't help but feel a little out of place. The walls were filled with colorful paintings, and the air smelled faintly of oil paints and fresh canvas. Emma was standing by one of the paintings, her eyes focused, lost in the strokes of the artist's work. She didn't see him approach, and for a moment, Liam just watched her. She was so different from the women he usually associated with, so real, so down to earth. And yet, there she was, standing in front of a canvas that could be her future, her dreams unfolding before her. He cleared his throat softly, and Emma looked up, a bright smile spreading across her face when she saw him. "Liam," she said, her voice warm. "I'm so glad you came." He smiled back, taking a step toward her. "I wouldn't have missed it for the world," he said, his voice sincere. He had never been much for art galleries, but for Emma, he would make an exception. They spent the next few hours talking about the paintings, the artist, and their own lives. Emma told him about her dreams of one day opening her own art studio, and Liam shared bits and pieces of his business ventures, though he kept most of it vague, not wanting to overwhelm her with the world he lived in. As the evening wore on, they found themselves outside, walking along the city streets, the night air cool and refreshing. Emma shivered slightly, and Liam instinctively took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "You didn't have to do that," she said, looking up at him in surprise. "I'm fine, really." He shrugged, his smile soft. "I don't mind." For a moment, neither of them said anything, just walking side by side, the city lights casting a soft glow around them. Emma couldn't help but feel like this was different. There was something about Liam that made her feel safe, like she could be herself without any pretenses. "So, do you ever think about the future?" she asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Liam glanced over at her, his brow furrowing slightly. "What do you mean?" She paused for a moment, unsure of how to put it into words. "I don't know. I mean, with everything you've accomplished, your business, your career, do you ever think about what comes next, what you really want out of life?" Liam's expression softened, and he turned to face her. For a moment, he said nothing, just looking into her eyes. "I don't think I ever really thought about it," he said quietly. "I've been so focused on my work, on making sure everything is running smoothly, that I haven't really stopped to think about what I want out of life. I guess I've been afraid of thinking too much about it." Emma looked at him, her heart swelling a little. She understood that fear. She had been so focused on surviving, on making sure she had enough to get by, that she hadn't stopped to think about what she really wanted either. "It's easy to get caught up in everything," she said softly, "but sometimes you have to stop and ask yourself what makes you happy, what you really want in life." They stood there for a moment, the world around them feeling quiet and still. Liam felt something shift inside him, like a weight being lifted from his shoulders. He hadn't realized how much he had been carrying until now. He looked at Emma, really looked at her, and realized just how much he had already changed his perspective. "You're right," he said, his voice soft but sure. "I've spent so much time building this empire that I forgot what it was all for. I guess I've been looking for something real." Emma smiled, her eyes shining. "Sometimes the best things in life aren't the ones you can measure with numbers or achievements," she said. "Sometimes it's about the people you meet along the way, the connections you make, and the moments that truly matter." Liam nodded slowly, feeling a warmth spread through him. He had spent years building his wealth, but in that moment, he realized that none of it mattered if he didn't have someone to share it with. And maybe, just maybe, he had found that person in Emma. As they continued to walk, The night feeling lighter, Emma glanced over at him, a mischievous smile on her lips. "You know," she said, "I'm glad I ran into you that night." Liam laughed softly, the sound rich and full. "Yeah, me too." The days following their walk together felt different for both of them. Emma continued her routine at the cafe, serving customers with the same bright smile she always had, but there was a shift within her, a quiet excitement she couldn't ignore. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Liam, to their conversations, to the connection that had sparked between them despite the unexpected and awkward first meeting. She had never expected this, never thought a simple blind date would lead to someone who seemed so real. Someone who didn't just see her as a waitress, someone who was actually interested in her dreams, her passions, her future. It felt like she had finally found a space where she could be herself, without hiding behind a mask of pretending. She smiled as she wiped down the counter, thinking of the night at the art gallery and their walk in the cool air. Liam's presence had left an imprint on her heart, and though she tried to push the thoughts away, they kept returning. But was it too soon to get her hopes up? Was she just getting caught up in the moment? Meanwhile, Liam had found himself unable to focus on much else. His meetings at work felt distant. His usual drive for success was clouded by the image of Emma in his mind. Her easy smile, the way she spoke about her dreams, the way she looked at him without any hint of pretension or hidden agenda, it was refreshing. Something he hadn't realized he missed. It was more than just her beauty. Though she was undeniably beautiful, in the most genuine and unassuming way. It was the way she made him feel like he didn't have to be anyone other than who he was in that moment. The polished CEO fraud that had been his armor for so long felt unnecessary when he was with her. One afternoon, he found himself sitting at his desk, reviewing reports. But all he could think about was calling her, hearing her voice again. He took a deep breath, picking up his phone and dialing her number. His heart raced a little, the anticipation building in his chest as the phone rang. When she answered, her voice came through the line, warm and inviting, and he couldn't help but smile. "Hey, Emma," he said, his voice softer than usual. "Hey, Liam," she replied, her tone light and warm. "What's up?" "I was thinking," Liam began, hesitating for a moment. "It's been a while since we got together. I know you're busy with everything, but maybe we could grab dinner again sometime soon?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to call again so soon, but hearing him suggest another dinner made her smile. "I'd love that," she said, a hint of excitement in her voice. "How about Friday? There's this little place I've been wanting to try." "Sounds perfect," Liam agreed, feeling a warmth spread through him at the thought of spending more time with her. "Friday it is, then." They ended the call with a promise to meet at the restaurant Emma had chosen, and for the rest of the day, both of them couldn't help but feel a little lighter. When Friday finally came, Emma found herself standing in front of the small, cozy restaurant she had chosen, her heart racing with anticipation. She had picked a place that felt more like home, a small family-owned spot that served the kind of food she loved, simple and delicious. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, inviting, and real, just like everything she'd come to appreciate about Liam. She stood in front of the door, checking her reflection in the window. Her dress was casual but elegant, and she had spent extra time making sure she looked good without overdoing it. She didn't need to impress him, he had already seen her at her most vulnerable, and that had been enough. She didn't have to pretend to be anyone else. A few minutes later, Liam arrived, looking effortlessly handsome in a dark jacket and jeans. He smiled when he saw her, and in that moment, it felt like time slowed down. He walked over to her, taking a step closer, and kissed her on the cheek. "You look amazing," he said, his voice soft and sincere. Emma blushed, her heart fluttering. "Thank you. You look pretty good yourself." They walked inside together, the warm light of the restaurant casting a cozy glow over them. They found their table by the window, and as they sat down, the conversation flowed easily, just like it had before. They talked about their weeks, their work, their families, and shared laughs over the most mundane things. But for both of them, every word felt meaningful, like they were slowly revealing pieces of themselves to each other. As the evening went on, Liam couldn't help but notice how at ease he felt with her. There was no pressure, no expectations, just two people getting to know each other, finding comfort in each other's company. By the time dessert arrived, both of them were smiling, laughing, and thoroughly enjoying themselves. Liam couldn't remember the last time he had felt this way, and it was a strange but welcome feeling. As they finished their dessert, Emma looked at him, her expression soft. "Liam, I'm really glad we met," she said quietly. "I'm glad too," he replied, his voice low. More than I can put into words. Emma smiled, her heart swelling at the sincerity in his voice. It felt like the beginning of something real, something lasting. Neither of them knew where this would go, but for the first time in a long time, both of them felt hopeful about the future. And as they left the restaurant together, their hands brushing briefly, it was clear that this was just the start of something special. As weeks passed, Emma and Liam's connection grew stronger with every conversation, every meeting, every shared moment. It wasn't just about the late-night talks or the coffee dates anymore. It was about something deeper, something neither of them had expected. For Emma, it was a world she had never imagined could be hers, one where she didn't have to constantly fight to survive. And for Liam, it was a chance to step away from the rigid world of business and power he had built for himself and experience life without the expectations and pressures of being a millionaire. It was early one Sunday morning when Liam, unexpectedly, knocked on Emma's door. She had just finished her shift at the cafe, tired but satisfied with her work. When she opened the door, she was greeted by the sight of him, standing there with a nervous smile, holding a bouquet of flowers. "Hey," he said, his voice soft but with a hint of excitement. "I know this is kind of out of the blue, but I thought I'd do something a little different today." Emma's heart fluttered at the sight of him, and she immediately stepped aside to let him in. "What's going on?" she asked, a curious smile forming on her lips. "You'll see," he replied, handing her the flowers. They were a mix of wildflowers, bright and colorful, a stark contrast to the more formal bouquets he was used to buying. It was a simple gesture, but something about it made Emma's heart swell. "Thank you," she said softly, taking the flowers from him. "They're beautiful." "You're welcome," he said, his smile deepening. "I figured I'd take you somewhere today. Somewhere nice, but not too fancy." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Where are we going?" "You'll find out soon enough," Liam teased, his eyes gleaming. "But trust me, it's not your typical date." Emma couldn't help but feel intrigued. She had learned by now that with Liam there was always an element of surprise. She wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but she had grown to enjoy the unpredictability. After a quick change of clothes, they were on their way. Liam drove her through the city, passing by the usual spots, fancy restaurants, upscale shops, but they didn't stop at any of those places. Instead, they continued on, heading toward the outskirts of town. As they neared a park, Emma could see a small, charming building in the distance. It looked like a rustic little cafe, tucked away from the busy streets, a perfect little getaway from the chaos of life. They parked and walked in together, greeted by the cozy warmth of the space. The cafe was small but welcoming, with wooden tables and mismatched chairs, the smell of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods in the air. It wasn't the type of place Liam usually frequented, but it was perfect for Emma. They sat by the window, the soft light of the late morning sun spilling in, casting a warm glow on everything around them. The conversation flowed easily as they sipped their drinks, both of them feeling at home in the quiet comfort of the cafe. It was a stark contrast to their usual busy lives, and for the first time in a long time, both of them could relax and just enjoy being in the moment. "This is nice," Emma said after a while, her voice calm and content. "I'm glad you like it," Liam replied, his voice soft but genuine. "I've been thinking a lot about how everything in my life has always been so fast-paced, you know. I thought this would be a good way to slow down a little." Emma smiled at him. "I'm glad you're starting to realize that. It's easy to get caught up in everything, but sometimes it's the little things that matter the most." Liam nodded, his gaze softening. "I think I'm starting to get that, and I think I'm starting to get why this is different." Emma looked at him, her heart racing slightly. She could feel the shift in the air between them, the growing intensity of the emotions they had been dancing around. For so long, she had kept herself guarded, afraid of getting hurt again. But with Liam, it was different. He wasn't asking her to be something she wasn't. He was just asking her to be herself, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could do that. "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I feel it too." There was a long pause, the kind of pause that spoke volumes. Neither of them needed to say more. The air around them felt charged with something new, something undeniable. As the conversation continued, the connection between them deepened. They shared their hopes, their fears, their dreams for the future. Emma found herself opening up in a way she hadn't in years, and Liam listened with a kind of attentiveness that made her feel seen, truly seen. As the afternoon drew to a close, Liam took her hand in his touch gentle but firm. "I'm glad we're doing this," he said softly. "I'm glad we found each other." Emma smiled, squeezing his hand in return. Me too. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, she had found something worth holding on to. Something real. Something that was all her own. As weeks passed, the bond between Emma and Liam grew stronger, becoming more than either of them had expected. The more time they spent together, the more they discovered just how different their worlds were, yet how much they still shared. For Emma, being with Liam felt like a dream, a world she never thought she would have access to. A life with quiet dinners, walks in the park, and genuine conversations, things that seemed so distant from her life as a waitress. For Liam, Emma was a breath of fresh air in a world filled with high-stakes meetings, endless contracts, and constant pressure. She wasn't interested in his money, his status, or the endless line of business deals he made. She just wanted to get to know him, to see the person behind the polished exterior. That night, after a casual dinner together, Liam drove Emma home, the soft hum of the car filling the silence between them. Emma looked out the window, her thoughts drifting. Everything felt so right with Liam, and yet she couldn't shake the fear that it might all end. She had never been one to get her hopes up too high, especially when it came to love. The fear of disappointment always lingered, keeping her heart in check. As they pulled up to her apartment building, Liam parked the car and turned to her, his expression serious yet soft. "Emma," he said, his voice quieter than usual, "I've been thinking a lot lately." She turned to face him, her heart skipping a beat. "About what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "About us," he replied, his eyes meeting hers. "I've never been good at letting my guard down. I've spent so much time building walls around myself, around my life. But with you it feels different." Emma's breath caught in her throat. "Liam," he held up a hand, stopping her. "I know you're scared. And honestly, I am too. But I can't keep pretending like this isn't something real. I think about you all the time. I look forward to seeing you, talking to you, spending time with you, and I don't want to lose that." Emma's heart raced, her emotions swirling. She had never heard Liam speak like this before, and part of her wanted to reach out and tell him how much she felt the same way. But the fear still lingered. "Liam, I'm not used to this," she admitted, her voice shaky. "I've been hurt before, and I don't know if I'm ready to open myself up to something more." Liam reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I understand, and I'm not asking for everything all at once. I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. If you're willing to take this step with me, I'm ready to see where it leads." The sincerity in his voice made Emma's heart swell. She had never expected to feel this way about anyone, especially someone like Liam, who had the world at his feet. But here she was, standing at the edge of something she didn't quite understand, yet knew she wanted to explore. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Okay," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "I'm willing to take that step with you." Liam's face broke into a soft, relieved smile, and for the first time in what felt like a long time, Emma felt like she was standing on solid ground. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice full of gratitude. "You don't know how much this means to me." They sat there for a few moments, the world around them fading as they held each other's gaze. It was a moment that felt timeless, like everything they had been through had led them here, to this point. Eventually, Liam opened the car door, stepping out to walk her up to her apartment. As they stood in front of the building, Emma hesitated for a moment before turning to face him. "Liam," she said, her voice soft. "I'm glad you're in my life." He smiled, his eyes shining with warmth. "I'm glad I'm in yours too." And with that, they said their goodbyes for the night, both of them carrying a newfound sense of peace in their hearts. As Emma stepped inside her apartment, she felt a sense of hope begin to bloom. She wasn't sure where this journey with Liam would take them, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to take that chance. Liam, for his part, sat in his car for a few moments after leaving her, reflecting on everything they had just shared. He had been through so much in his life, but this felt different. This felt real. He couldn't wait to see what the future held for them, and for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid to find out. The days that followed Emma and Liam's conversation felt like a new chapter, one neither of them could have predicted. They were both aware that their relationship was shifting, becoming something more than just a casual connection. It was no longer about their differences, her life as a waitress with dreams of opening an art studio, and his as a successful CEO with the weight of the world on his shoulders. No, now it was about what they shared. the moments that made them smile, the way they saw each other for who they truly were. The fear that once held them both back began to fade, replaced by the comforting certainty that they had found something worth holding on to. For Liam, it was a revelation. He had spent so much of his life buried in work, in the endless cycle of business meetings and deals, that he had forgotten what it meant to live for something more than just success. Emma had reminded him of the simple joys in life, the beauty in the small, fleeting moments that made it all worthwhile. And for Emma, Liam was a steady presence, someone who saw her for who she was, someone who believed in her dreams, even when she was afraid to believe in them herself. The weekend after their conversation, Liam surprised her with something special. He had planned a weekend getaway, a place to escape from their busy lives and focus on each other. When Emma received his message telling her to pack a bag for a surprise, she was both excited and nervous. She had never imagined her life would take this turn, that she would be spending a weekend in a cozy cabin with someone who made her feel seen, someone who made her feel safe. When they arrived at the cabin, nestled in the woods by a peaceful lake, Emma was in awe. The place was exactly what she needed, a quiet, serene escape from the hustle and bustle of the city. The cabin itself was small but beautifully rustic, with large windows that let in the natural light and allowed them to look out over the lake. It was a far cry from the city life they were both used to, but in a way, it felt like the perfect setting for what they were beginning to build together. They spent their days hiking through the woods, taking in the beauty of nature, and their nights curled up by the fire, talking about everything and nothing. Emma felt a deep sense of peace that she hadn't felt in years. It was as though time had slowed down, allowing her to simply enjoy the present without worrying about the future. As the weekend went on, Emma found herself falling even deeper for Liam. His easy laugh, the way he listened intently when she spoke, the kindness he showed in the smallest of gestures, it was everything she had been searching for, though she hadn't known it until now. One evening, as they sat on the porch of the cabin, the sun setting behind them, Emma turned to Liam, her heart full. "Liam," she began softly, "this weekend has been amazing. I never thought I could feel so peaceful, so at home." Liam smiled, his eyes soft as he reached for her hand. "I'm glad you're happy. I wanted to show you that there's more to life than just work and stress. There's beauty in simplicity, in these quiet moments, and I wanted to share them with you." Emma's heart swelled with emotion, and she squeezed his hand. "You've done more than just show me quiet moments," she said, her voice thick with feeling. "You've shown me that there's still hope for the kind of love I've always dreamed of." Liam looked at her, his expression serious, yet filled with warmth. "I've always believed in love, Emma," he said softly. "I just didn't know if I'd ever find it again, but with you, I feel like I have." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the only sounds being the gentle rustling of the leaves and the distant call of birds. It was in that moment that Emma realized she had found what she had been searching for. Not the perfect life, not the perfect circumstances, but something real, something that made her feel alive. "Liam," she said after a moment, I'm ready. I'm ready to let myself believe in us, in what we can be together." Liam's eyes sparkled as he pulled her close, his voice low and full of affection. "So am I, Emma, so am I." And as the stars began to appear in the sky above them, they knew that no matter what the future held, they had something worth fighting for. They had each other. As the weeks went by, Emma and Liam settled into a rhythm that felt natural, like their lives had always been meant to intersect in this way. Their weekend getaway had been a turning point, a place where their bond grew deeper, and the walls they had each built around themselves began to crumble. They had both learned to trust again, to open up and share their true selves, without the fear of judgment or rejection. Emma continued to work at the cafe, but now every shift felt lighter. She had something to look forward to, something more than just the routine of her everyday life. Liam, too, found himself looking forward to his moments with Emma, and his once hectic, demanding schedule began to feel less overwhelming. He found himself carving out time for the things that truly mattered time with her. One evening, as they sat together on the rooftop of Liam's apartment building, the city lights twinkling below them, Emma turned to him with a soft smile. "I never imagined this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I'd find someone like you." Liam took her hand in his touch warm and reassuring. "And I never imagined that I'd find someone like you, Emma," he replied, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You've changed my life in ways I didn't even know I needed." The words hung in the air for a moment, and Emma felt a rush of gratitude for the life they were building together. She hadn't just found love. She had found someone who saw her, truly saw her, in a way no one else ever had. And in return, she had seen Liam in ways he had never allowed anyone to see. The man behind the CEO, the man who had spent so much of his life hiding behind a facade of success and power. She had come to know the parts of him that were soft, vulnerable, and most importantly, real. "I've been thinking," Liam said, breaking the silence, "about the future, about us." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice filled with curiosity and a little trepidation. Liam paused for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts, and then he looked into her eyes with a seriousness that took her breath away. "I've realized that I don't want to go through life without you by my side. You've brought something into my life that I didn't even know was missing. I can't imagine a future without you in it." Emma's heart swelled in her chest, the words he spoke filling her with a warmth that she hadn't known she needed. "Liam," she whispered, "I feel the same way." Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Emma's eyes widened as he opened it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I want to spend it with you," he said softly. "Emma, will you marry me?" Time seemed to slow as Emma's mind raced. She hadn't expected this, not so soon, but in her heart, she knew that this was what she had been waiting for. This was the love she had always dreamed of, the kind that came with no conditions, no doubts, only the promise of a future together. With tears in her eyes, she nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes," she said, her heart bursting with happiness. "Yes, I'll marry you." Liam's face lit up with the most genuine smile she had ever seen, and he slipped the ring onto her finger, sealing the moment with a soft kiss. From that moment on, everything changed. They began planning their future together, and every step of the way, they leaned on each other, trusting that they could face whatever came their way. Emma's art studio slowly began to take shape, and with Liam's support, she was able to bring her dreams to life in a way she never thought possible. And Liam, for all his success, realized that true wealth wasn't measured by the number of zeros in his bank account, but by the love and happiness he had found with Emma. As the days turned into months, and the months into years, their love only grew stronger. They faced challenges, of course, but with each challenge, they came out stronger, more united than ever. And in the end, it wasn't the grand gestures or the fancy dates that defined their love, but the quiet moments, the laughter, the support, the shared dreams that made it real. Emma and Liam had found something rare, something lasting. They had found each other. And no matter what the future held, they knew that they would face it together, hand in hand, heart in heart.